I'm going to tell you a story that I often think about, and I don't even know why this particular story pops into my head all the time, but I spend like on and off, a fair bit of time thinking about this story. So the story is about a lady that I used to go to university with. I did my university degree, my nursing degree, with her, and I remember, I remember this one time we were in a workshop. And we were kind of like divided up into groups, and I happened to be in her group. There was like groups of 4 or 5. We were doing these exercises, whatever we were doing, pathophysiology or something. We were kind of discussing certain things in nursing. Anyway, so there was like a bit of a break, and we finished the work that we had to do, and we were still waiting for other groups. And there was like maybe like 10 or 15 minute period where all the people in the group were kind of complaining about the workload, complaining about how much, assignments we had to do. It was like the end of the semester, so all these kind of due dates are coming in, and so all of us youngsters are kind of going around the circle and complaining how we don't have enough time or whatever. And this lady was the only lady that was like in her 40s. And she just, kept quiet to herself, while all the other youngsters in the group were just, letting it rip and whinging and complaining and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, and towards the end, like we kind of just, looked at her and we were like, oh, how are you finding the assignments? How are you going with the due dates and whatever? And she said, yeah, I'm okay. It's going along all right. And I'm like, when are you finding the time to do it? Like, when are you doing it amongst all of this? And she's like, oh, I do it mostly at night, when my kids go to bed. And I was like, oh, you got kids? My 18, 19-year-old brain, like, I didn't even think about that. Yes, 40-year-old men and women that have usually kids. She's like, yeah, I've got 5 boys, 3 are teenagers, 3 of them are playing footy, so I have to drive them around, school, trainings, games. So, I'm a busy mom. I'm a single mom, so I got to, do the mother role first before I start doing, studying, and also work part-time and all this stuff. And she kept like going on and on and on. And she basically said the only time she's got to study and write these assignments is basically when they go to bed. So after 10 p.m., she would basically go to the computer room, go to a computer and just start writing this stuff. And usually she would write until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. That's how she would study. And I remember specifically, I've said this in the past, like our brains don't remember, what we saw, what we heard, as well as we remember how we felt. And I remember in this moment, man, I felt like, wow. I just felt this like, it was definitely a blip on my radar in terms of my life, how I felt. Here I was complaining about my life, 18, 19-year-old life. All I had to really, deal with is the assignments of work, so the uni work, playing basketball and then going to the games, and then also having a social life, chasing around, all this sort of stuff. This lady, 5 kids, man, that alone, now that I'm a father, like I understand what kids are. She had 5 kids, 3 of them were teenagers, driving around every single night to trainings, games and whatnot, coming back, going to work, part-time, and also having time to do exactly the stuff that I was doing. So when I equated, what she had on her plate and what I had on my plate, it was just like night and day. Like I basically had nothing to worry about in terms of, what she had to deal with. And here we were, there was 3 or 4 other people in this kind of little group that we had. They're all kind of like my age, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We were all complaining, and this lady just sitting there and not complaining. And when we asked her, she was like, yeah, it's okay. It's kind of busy, but, I'm getting there. And I remember kind of feeling embarrassed in that moment. I remember feeling to myself, man, what am I talking about, man? I just remember like this feeling of like embarrassment and not understanding what's actually going on in life. I don't know why, but she pops into my head quite often. So when I come into these training sessions, when I'm kind of working out, I just keep thinking to myself, you think you're working hard, you think you're busy, but there's probably somebody out there who's doing more work, who's more busy and not even complaining. So it's all about perspective. It's all about understanding where you are positioned in your life and in the world and what is possible. We often talk about, records that are standing for like 20, 30 years. There was a long period of time that we thought that it was humanly impossible to run a marathon under 2 hours. And then one guy runs under 2 hours, and all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of people running under 2 hours. Like this kind of thing, like, somebody does, we never thought anybody could bench over 180 kilos or whatever the figure was. All of a sudden, there's like thousands of people around the world benching over 180 kilos. We once thought having a 100-kilo bench press was like a really nice thing to have. Like, you're doing pretty well if you've got a 100-kilo bench press. Now, 100-kilo bench press is like, it's like if you don't have it, you're not even training. So it's all about the mentality of how you view things, your perspective, what you think is possible. Once you conquer your mental side, everything else falls into place, man. It's like a cascade of events. If you don't believe in it, you will never kind of manifest it. You will never be able to attain it. So it all starts with your mind. It all starts with your head. So, a lot of you guys ask me, man, how do you recover? Well, number one, there's many different things to it, but number one, I don't think I'm working hard. The psychological stress is not there. I'm like, well, this is nothing, man, because I know Ronaldo, Messi, you name it, man, like Steph Curry, LeBron James, I know they're working really hard. Like, I know I've got the same freaking blood and flesh of these other human beings. These are not aliens. So I know what's possible. Yeah, okay, they're more gifted than me, and, they might take drugs and all this sort of stuff that, we often talk about. But this stuff can't add night and day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can still do a lot of training and not fall apart and die. Even if you look away from the fitness industry, from the sport industry, and you think about your ancestors, I guarantee you your grandfather worked harder than you. I freaking guarantee it. He probably worked, or, his father, your grandfather, they probably worked in some farm, working labor jobs, working with animals, basically working all day, and then as soon as night falls, you go to bed and repeat it, and year on year out, like that's what they did. I know when I heard stories about my own grandfather, the stuff they used to, man, that's crazy workload, man. And here we are talking about, dude, you can't squat every day, man. It's impossible. I get it. Like, my grandfather never squatted, but I can tell you, man, I've dug a freaking hole to plant a tree, and my dad, man, who never freaking trains, the stuff that I do, I'll like have like 3 or 4 goes with the pick or with the shovel, and I'm like fried. My lower back is fried. The guy there is like he could basically work for 2 hours without like stopping with the shovel, So what is that? Like, that's just work capacity. Like, he's just worked all his life. That's the way it is. So it's about the mental aspect. Don't think you're working really hard. You're not. You basically just understand there's a perspective issue if you think that you are the hardest working freaking person in the world. If you're feeling sore, you've probably taken too much too quickly. It's all about easing into workloads. Ease into it. Allow the biology to catch up. And then after like 6 or 12 months, you're going to look back and be like, man, I do a lot of work. But there was never a shock point where your body freaks out what's happening. Anyway, guys, 180 today, sprint up. You saw the whole thing. It was like 7 minutes, one take. It's in between night shifts, so very, very minimal workout today. It was just basically kiss the bar, say hello, and get out. I'm going to go back to bed now and go to another night shift, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace out.